You're listening to the Creativepreneur Podcast, episode 13, and today I'm sharing my personal take on Choose, Ryan Levesque's new book, and how creatives can use it to choose the best idea for them. So, stay tuned. Hello, my name is Rodney Washington, author, artist, and entrepreneur, and I'm passionate about helping creatives just like you do what lights you up and make a comfortable living while doing it. Each week, I'll be sharing timely business growth, marketing, and mindset hacks and interviews with courageous creative entrepreneurs to inspire you to get paid for your creativity. So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and enjoy today's show. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by my free audio, book, and PDF, Get Paid for Your Creativity, 57 Ways to Monetize Your Gifts and Create True Security for Yourself. To get your hands on a copy of the free audiobook and PDF, go to getpaidforyourcreativity.com/57ways-gift. Welcome back to the podcast. Now, in episode 11 of the podcast, I began to introduce what the focus of today's show is going to be around is Ryan Levesque's new book called Choose, the single most important decision before starting your business. And in that podcast episode, which you can catch at getpaidforyourcreativity.com/011 for episode 11, you can listen to those 3 lessons that I shared about the first 60 days of running this podcast and how you can apply them to every project that you create. In the 3rd lesson, I talked about the power of choice and the importance of choosing well. And that's when I first introduced you to the topic of today's podcast and Ryan's book. Now, if you're not familiar with Ryan, Ryan is an author and a brilliant entrepreneur in my mind. He wrote a book that was very popular several years ago called Ask. And it was basically written to help entrepreneurs move away from the sole idea of just deciding what their customers wanted or what they thought they wanted, and actually do the number one thing that we all should do as entrepreneurs is to survey our audience or ask our audience in one form or another what their pain points are and what their desires are so that we can create products and services and provide products and services that will address the things that are important to them. So Ask was a very groundbreaking book in its respect because it was a topic that was rarely talked about, which leads to why I felt his actual book, the book I'm talking about today called Choose, actually, he admitted himself which should be a prequel to Ask. So if you haven't read Ask, and I'll provide the links to that in the show notes, or if you have read Ask, I would recommend reading Choose anyway. And then you can maybe go back and read Ask again so that you will then have sort of the context on how to choose the right market. So from the premise of Ask, the book Ask, that he published about 3 years ago, I believe, it was assuming that you were already in conversation with your ideal audience and that you were interviewing them either through a quiz type of a survey or directly through phone interview or what have you. What their areas that they were either struggling with, the pain points, or the things they desired, so that you would then know how to create and offer things to them that would be based on the intel that you got from asking them. So Choose actually is the prequel to that book, as I mentioned a moment ago, coming from the premise of choosing the right audience and the right market to begin with. Because again, you can get really excited about an idea. As creatives, we can be very guilty of that. I know I am. And that deciding just based strictly on our passion or our talents or on our interest is a key component of serving an audience, but it can't be the sole thing that we rely upon, because if we are doing what we're doing in terms of making it a business that actually produces income, we have to provide our audience with things that they actually are willing to give us the money for. So while it can be very tempting to want to just focus on what interests us and our passions and so on and so forth, we cannot forget that if there's going to be an exchange financial resources between you and that customer, you need to also be aware of what they want, how they want it packaged and presented to them, and be able to make the connection between you and your customer so that you can actually then make the business that you want that actually produces income. So I'll leave Ask to your own, I'm not going to talk about Ask that book so much. I will put the link in the show notes. But I will focus for this particular episode. I'm going to talk about the book Choose again, because I think it's brilliant. And the reason why I feel it's brilliant is because, again, it helps. I personally believe, as creatives who, again, we can be highly passionate and very motivated by our passion, I think it helps to add that little level of grounding in order for us to be able to get some clarity around what our audience, what our market really wants. And that by doing research, now I personally love to do research. You may not be a research buff. I personally think research is very creative. And I'm going to talk about some things that I've created for you that accompanies this podcast episode that you can use to get your feet wet in the realm of creativity as it relates to your creativity. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But as I said, I just finished reading the book, and I wanted to really just kind of go over really briefly what I felt my key takeaways are from the book. I recommend highly that you add this to your success library. It's about 176 pages. It's more than 200, but as far as the body of the book itself, it's about 176. I read it in 2 settings. I thought it was very well written, very easy to consume. And again, it spoke to that side of me that likes to get in there and kind of dig around and find out really like what's going on in my market, in my industry, and the areas that I want to serve. So again, I wanted just to set that up, that it's a very easy read. I think you can do it in really 1 setting. I did it in 2. And it's something that I feel like you should definitely add to your library. And again, the link is going to be available in the show notes. So this is what I want to just go over really briefly, my key takeaways I've taken away from the book Choose so far. So my first takeaway is, obviously, as I've talked about already setting up to this point, is to get really clear on the market and the audience you want to pursue before you start creating offers. Okay, this is really important. You want an audience, and this is where Choose, to me, is really vital. Because again, we can get very passionate about things and not want to do that little bit of research to find out, is there an audience for this? And not only that, is there an audience for this that actually has a proven track record of purchasing products and services similar or exactly like the ones that you want to offer? That was my first key takeaway. Now, my second key takeaway was to keep an open mind about your initial offers. Even with all the research and testing that Ryan suggests in his book, ultimately, you're going to have to rely on your intuition. So it's best to approach your initial projects from what the author suggests, a practice business mindset. And so let me clarify that a little bit. So Ryan started out several years ago creating businesses based on what he felt was holes in a particular market. To be more specific, and I believe I talked about this in episode 11, his initial first online business that he created was a Scrabble tile jewelry making business, or jewelry making business made out of Scrabble, using Scrabble tiles. His wife actually was the one that was really doing it, and I think he was unemployed at the time. They were living in Asia, I believe, I think Hong Kong more specifically. And this was something that she was doing for, creativity and fun and pleasure. And so he kind of got interested in it because she was doing it. And I'm not quite sure if she had purchased a course or an ebook, I believe it was, from Etsy, from someone who had created a product on how to make Scrabble tile jewelry. So how either she bought it or he did, I don't really remember. But the point is that he saw the book, and his first impression of the book was that he thought it was actually very poorly constructed. The images were poor quality. I think there was a lot of grammar and editing and copy issues that he felt were just obvious mistakes, and spelling issues and so on and so forth. And so again, but he did notice that the book was selling very well on Etsy. And so his immediate thought was, well, if a poorly done book can sell this much, what would a better iteration of the book do if one existed? And that's what he chose as his first project. He decided to take an existing product that already was out there, was already selling, already had a proven track record, as I've already just mentioned a few moments ago, and he improved it. So he learned how to make the jewelry himself so that he would be speaking from a place of authenticity, that he's actually done it. Then he took better photographs of the process of making the jewelry, and he cleaned up the copy and the editing and the grammar and the spelling and all of that. And then re-released a better improved version of the ebook. I believe he also sold his on Amazon, not Amazon, sorry, but Etsy. It might have been Amazon too, but I remember Etsy was where he got the initial book from. And the book did really, really well. And it did so well up until the point that the interest in the Scrabble tile jewelry market, I guess, if you will, petered out. So the sales dropped just because the interest had moved on. People had moved away from wanting to know more about this. But the point is that he found an opportunity, and he decided to, instead of, again, reinventing the wheel, he decided to improve what was already there. This particular, and let me also back it up to what I just said before I dived into his story. He took it from the mindset of a practice business. So he wasn't doubling down and saying that my livelihood is going to have to come from hereforth and forevermore how to make Scrabble tile jewelry. He found an opportunity. He found a product that was already selling. He knew that he could improve upon it. He did that. He responded by putting that out there in the marketplace that already had a proven track record, and it responded in kind by purchasing his updated, revised iteration. And he had the mentality around it, the mindset around it, that this isn't going to make or break my life if this business does not go over, if no one buys this product. So what I loved about that is for me, reading that part, it removed the shackles and the fears and all of the pressure that we can put on ourselves, that whatever it is that we are doing, this pressure that we put on ourselves that it has to work. And if it doesn't work, we're going to be ruined and no one will ever buy anything from us. And we may as well go back and get a waiter's job or whatever the case may be. And I'm being overly dramatic here, but the point I want to make is that sometimes that pressure to succeed supersedes everything. And to me, it really kills our creativity. No matter what your creative discipline is, there has to be room for experimentation, room for exploring, and room for obviously making so-called mistakes in order for you to find your groove, your niche, and where you really jive with everything that you're doing. So I love the fact that he didn't marry himself to Scrabble tile jewelry making. He didn't just try to keep pushing it even after the market had started to dwindle, obviously because the sales had begun to decline, and he moved on to something else. And his something else at this particular time in his life was orchids. He had gotten orchids as gifts, and every orchid that he ever got died. I can speak to that because every orchid I've ever gotten has died. And so it was something that he literally noticed in his home because he was looking for another idea, i.e. another opportunity. He didn't grow up wanting to grow orchids. He didn't dream about and go to school to learn how to grow and manage and care for orchids. But he had something that obviously brought him some pleasure, some satisfaction by having these beautiful flowers in his home. He noticed that every one that he ever got didn't survive, and he knew that other people were probably struggling with the same thing. So he went on and did some research and found out that there was a high interest in people wanting to care for orchids. So he kind of, from that first practice business of doing the Scrabble tiles, he then decided to do his hand at how to create a course, I believe it was, or maybe it was an ebook, I can't remember, on how to care for and basically care for orchids without them dying. And that business did extremely well. I believe he said to the tune of around 20 something $1,000 a month in selling a variety of educational products on how to care for orchids. So again, this really spoke to me because in several ways, as I said before, he wasn't trying to pick the only idea that could ever work. And if it didn't work, he was, doomed for a life of failure. He took inventory of what was going on around him. In his first business idea, it was from his wife making Scrabble tile jewelry. The second business was noticing that every idea came from every orchid that they ever got died, and he wanted to find out a way to keep them alive and help them thrive. And therefore, he did the research that actually is sort of the beginning foundations of what has created this book, Choose. So I believe, as I said a moment ago, I think the whole thing with the orchids was just literally a matter of sitting in his home and kind of looking around the room, not necessarily for an idea, but the orchid caught his eye, and that was the inspiration. And then he went on to research and find out where he could improve on an existing, already proven, viable market and create a product, a digital product that would serve that market, and he did very well with it. I will say this now that I've already shared these two particular case study stories with you about Ryan's own personal journey, is that Choose and the research and the areas that he chooses to focus on is around educational markets, digital product markets. So if you're thinking about doing an ebook, an e-course, whatever, something along those lines, educational based, maybe it can be consulting or coaching or teaching or workshops or masterminds or anything along those lines. He recommends that as a complement to your existing business. So say if you maybe sell physical product, as an example, you would want to have an educational arm to that product business in order to diversify your income portfolio and generate income not from just the physical sale of goods. Likewise, if you sell physical services or you do services for people one-on-one, that you have an educational arm of your business, an information product arm of your business, so that everything isn't dependent upon you actually doing the work for someone one-on-one or one-to-many or what have you. So again, I just want to let you know up front that the slant and the angle in which Ryan recommends you use that some of the things that he's talking about really is if you're considering adding on an information educational based product or service line onto your existing offering. So let's say if you, like we had Jane Button on for episode 7, I believe, or 6. I think it's 7. It was episode 7 with Jane Button, where she talked about her business that she built on knitting, and she built a multi-million-dollar company showing people or knitting baby hats that she sold to Nordstrom's and other places. Obviously, a perfect add-on for her would be educational materials on how to knit baby hats and what have you, but also for entrepreneurs who do want to do knitting, crafts, and how to do a business out of it, which I believe that's what she does do. So again, no matter what it is, if you paint, if you're a photographer, if you're a Photoshop expert, you're a designer, calligrapher, graphic designer, anything along those lines, if you're an amazing cook and you do catering or whatever the case may be, there is always an educational, informational based slant that you can add into your business. And Ryan's research, or the way he hopes you do your research, can help you pick out that what he calls sweet spot market that will be a viable area of interest for your educational information-based products. So again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, is I feel like as creatives, this can be really important to us to really get clear with ourselves and staying loose and staying flexible as we're doing our research, and not become too soon, not become overly attached to our offerings or our ideas too soon. Because again, I think that's another area where we can stymie ourselves as we go all in too quickly. A lot of the times because we're basing our interest on passion only, and we're not really doing the deep dive to find out where we fit into the grand scheme of everything that's available out there already. And again, if we do put something out there, or you have been putting things out there and the audience isn't responding as you hoped, it can be debilitating and it can stunt you from moving forward on just doing a slight tweak or a slight reiteration of an idea that you've already started, because sometimes you've got a good thing, you've got a good idea, it just might need some tweaking. And so I liken it back to, again, what I shared about Ryan in his Scrabble tile jewelry making ebook. He could have looked at that and completely overlooked the fact that it was poorly designed and poorly written, and just made the blanket decision, well, this already exists. No one's going to buy my iteration of it, so why bother with it? Or this market's already been filled, so why bother with it? And what I love about what he's sharing and inspiring you is, no, you want to actually have a market that people are already proven to buy something. You think about how many different cookbooks are on the shelf, or how many books on parenting are on the bookshelf. And this is just books. How many magazines, how many websites, how many, you fill in the blank, on yoga or paleo or, whatever the subject is. You want to go with a market where there's multiple options. Now, of course, there is the possibility of going into an overly saturated market where there's possibly too much, quote unquote, competition. But I still feel even in the oversaturated markets, there still can be that bent or that slight pivot that you can do, that you can address a particular piece of that market that maybe the other ones aren't doing. And that's where you can actually shine and excel. So again, I don't want you to take away that if you see something done multiple places, that it's too late for you to put your stamp on it. Really, quite frankly, if there's no one really selling anything similar to what you want to do, that's a real, in my opinion, a real red light or a real yellow light. Like, pause and think about that for a second, because if no one's selling anything on this topic, then that means because the market's not proven. Now, you could be the pioneer that breaks in, but the pioneer that breaks through trudges a long way before they have that breakthrough. And no one is really willing to walk that journey with you until you've proven that you've broken through. And then, of course, when you do break through, you do have the advantage of first entry advantage, but then everyone else follows behind you. So no one wants to reinvent the wheel. They just want to make the existing wheel they have work better. And that's what I feel is really a great takeaway from the book. So moving forward, I want to share some of the exercises that Ryan did in helping you find what he calls your sweet spot market. Now, to do this, he suggests conducting a series of self-assessments to first get clear on your interest and how you might be able to pair your talents and skills to a viable market. And to aid in this self-discovery process, he's created what I think is a really generous bundle of really handy worksheets to accompany the book. The URL to get those worksheets, which are completely free for download, is available inside the book. So out of fairness for everyone who's bought the book, I'm not going to share the URL in the podcast or in the show notes. For fairness to everyone who's purchased the book, like I did, I really recommend you get the book, and then you'll find the link peppered throughout the book everywhere, and you can go and get all of the downloadable handouts that he makes available. So again, just to be fair, I'm not going to announce it on the show. But one of the worksheets in particular that I want to point out is, and that I'm a real big fan of, is what he calls his business idea brainstorm worksheet. I just want to give you a really brief overview of the framework for this particular worksheet. So first, what Ryan suggests when exploring particular markets is to consider the completion of this statement. So here it goes. Ask yourself, I want to help people blank. So for an example, you could say, I'm just going to throw out a few. I want to help people learn how to watercolor paint or paint with watercolors. I want to help people bake sourdough bread. I want to help people learn how to knit baby caps and sweaters. I want to help people design a WordPress website or Squarespace website or blog. I want to help people self-publish their first or next book. I want to help people take beautiful photos with their iPhone. So what he's saying is, according to the author, the completion of your "I want to help people" statement becomes the foundation for your keyword that you will use to conduct your research on Google, Google Trends, Amazon, and a couple of other suggestions that I'm going to share with you as a part of this episode. So going back to this, I'm going to use the first one I threw out as an example. I want to help people learn how to watercolor paint or paint with watercolor. So what you would do is you would take that, learn how to watercolor paint or learn how to paint with watercolor, and that phrase, that keyword phrase, is what you type into Google. And when you type it into Google, you see what comes up. Now, this is where I want to share with you the extra bonus add-on that I've added on to this podcast episode. On the show notes page for this episode, again, getpaidforyourcreativity.com/013 for episode 13, I've created a video tutorial to show you how to use some of the tools that Ryan recommended and some of the ones that I also added on for recommendation. And I show you how to use this particular example with Google Trends, with Google, with Amazon, which are the three things that Ryan recommends. And then I also added on three additional areas that you can do your research with, because he does talk about educational products. I researched Udemy, which is an online school platform for people who want to teach online classes, and also Skillshare. So those were two other areas that I also threw in. And I also did another, I'll talk about that in a second. So anyway, what I did was I created a video tutorial for you. It's about 45 minutes or so. And it walks you through how to do this actual research using that particular keyword phrase, using Google, Google Trends, Amazon, Udemy, and Skillshare. And that's available for you again on the show notes page at episode 013, getpaidforyourcreativity.com/013 for episode 13. Okay, so what you're doing is, by approaching it from this perspective, by asking yourself that question or answering that question, or I shouldn't say answering that question, finishing that statement, I want to help people fill in the blank. What you say to complete that statement is coming from your place of interest, talent, and passion. It could be either one of those things or a combination of all of the above. And so what he recommends and what I recommend is maybe writing out that using several different interests that you have. For an example, one could be about maybe something around art, if you like to create art, or baking, or whatever. I'm not going to drill down into the interests. You know what you're interested in, and you know how you want to help people. So again, I recommend writing out that statement with a different conclusion a few different times. And then as you're doing your market research, which is what the video training that I've added onto this will accompany, and what Ryan talks about in the book, is you can then research multiple markets. So you're not just deciding that it's got to be this, it's got to be that. You know, you may find that when you start doing your research that there isn't enough of an interest, or there's too much competition, and you're going to have to then drill down further to find your particular niche within a larger audience. But filling out that statement will begin to get your mind to thinking about how you actually want to help people. And that's why the way he put that together, I thought was really powerful, and I really, really enjoyed that. So again, you want to just check in with yourself. You want to check in with your level of interest and your commitment before you start investing a lot of time on your research. So, and he breaks this down even further. So again, before you go on to Google or Amazon or anything else, he has another self-assessment checklist that you want to go through as you're reviewing that list that you just made of, I want to help people fill in the blank. You want to run through this self-assessment to check in and take the temperature for yourself as to how deep you are in wanting to pursue this. And the four areas that he talks about is, and I love it, the first one is, would you die on the hill for this? Meaning, if you said, I want to help people learn how to watercolor paint, is expressing yourself, helping other people express themselves through painting or creativity, in this context, watercolor, let's use it as an example, but to drill it down, is this something that you're willing to die on the hill for? Now, I know it sounds dramatic, but hear me out on this. I feel it's really important to think in terms, how deep is your interest? How deep is your passion? Because as I mentioned in episode 11 of the podcast, I believe it was lesson number one on why I chose my lessons I learned from the first 60 days of running the podcast. I said that you should pick something that you can focus on, that you're willing to be committed to for the next 5 years. And the reason why I feel like that is so important is, it's not that you will do it for 5 years, but it's to say that you could conceivably see yourself easily doing this for the next 5 years. Meaning that your passion for it, your interest for it, your desire to share it with the world is so strong that you're willing to do it. You're willing to invest the next 5 years of your life doing it. And I feel like the reason why that is so important is because if you're only doing it from the perspective of, without the level of commitment to learning more about the subject, that you can share more about what you're learning about the subject to the audience that you're growing and building. If the interest is only from the perspective of opportunity to make money and you really don't care, otherwise, then you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the people that you hope to serve. So while the term, would you die on the hill for this, or the question, sounds so dramatic, what I really take it to mean is, are you committed to really doing whatever it takes to share this level of knowledge and expertise and education and lessons and wisdom and all of it that it's going to take to make this a business? Are you willing to claim your stake in the ground on this, and if do it gladly for 5 years? Again, it's not to say that you've got to do it for 5 years, but are you willing? Are you at least willing? Do you have enough of a commitment to the subject that this is something that you would double down on easily, and only think the more that you do it, the more that you're involved in it, the more that you're engaged with it, your passion and your interest and everything will only grow stronger, because you will be a student of the thing that you too are teaching. And that to me is what that means to me. Now, you take your own interpretation from it, but that's my particular passion from it. So when I'm looking at that list of, I want to help people fill in the blank, I'm going to ask myself that question: Am I committed to learning everything I can about this so that I can then be better for the people I'm here to serve for the next 5 years? So if saying, would you die on the hill for this is a little too strong or too harsh for you, then think of it in terms of that way. Is this something you can commit to for 5 years, and that you actually really want to learn more about this thing that you're going to be helping other people do? Okay. The next area is, are you passionate about it? So again, you made, as with the Scrabble tile jewelry making with Ryan, he wasn't necessarily passionate about it. I don't necessarily believe it was, but I think he became passionate as he saw where he could make a better product and be a better service provider to the people who had an interest in that subject. So while he may not have been passionate about Scrabble tile jewelry, he was passionate about the people that were willing to invest in learning how to do this particular skill or hobby that he was going to then improve the products that they were getting to help them get more enjoyment out of what they were doing. So that's why I felt like that's a really good question to ask yourself. Does it suit your personality? Now, again, you've got to think in terms of, to me, again, when you get the actual downloadables that accompany the book, you'll see more about what these particular questions tie into. For me, asking the question, does it suit your personality? I think in terms of more of your business model, which he also helps you break down inside the book as well. So some people are introverted, extroverted, or maybe a hybrid. Some people really just don't want to deal with people face to face or one on one. So they might be more suited to a more autonomous online experience, maybe a Facebook group, maybe just doing digital products like an ebook where they have very little vocal interaction with their customers. Whereas someone else may really only want to do things in person. They only want to have workshops and classes and things like that. And they want to meet people face to face and spend time with them face to face. And that's where they thrive. So again, if that's you, you have to kind of decide whatever the business model is that you're going to choose. Does it suit your personality? If you're a person that really likes your autonomy, you really don't want to engage with people too much, then you would choose a business model that would represent you being able to do that. And likewise, if you're more extroverted or if you're a hybrid like I am, I can go either way. I actually, to me, both feeds the other. So if I can do things in person, it feeds the online stuff I do, and the online stuff feeds the in-person stuff that I do. So again, that to me, when you're looking at your different business ideas and potential models, you want to get clear that what's going to be required to connect with an audience of buyers is the business model you're considering. Does it fit your personality? And then the last one is, as I already talked about a moment ago, is could you see yourself doing this for the next 5 years? As again, I spoke about this on just a few moments ago, as well as on episode 11 of the podcast. So what you want to do is once you've run through that list of that I want to help people statements, and then you've run each of those through these 4 areas. Would you die on the hill for this? Are you passionate about it? Does it suit your personality? Does the business model suit your personality? And can you see yourself doing this for the next 5 years? And the ones that you want to then take into your research online is the ones that tick all 4 of those boxes, or the majority of those boxes. If each one of them, whatever the score is, you want to pick the ones that tick the most. If you have 1 or 2 or 3 interests that tick all 4, maybe run through those again. Let's say if there's 3 of them, run them through again and really check in with yourself intuitively and ask yourself, so that's where that would I die on the hill for this really may be the deciding factor. And ask yourself that question. Am I willing to go to the mat for this? Come hell or high water? Because that may be the thing that you'll say, no, not really. I really love this, but I'm not willing to go that deep with it. So again, the only way that you can really get the most out of this exercise is to be honest with yourself and ask yourself that question. So again, this particular exercise really stood out for me, and he gives you this assessment inside of the book bundle, as I mentioned a moment ago. So what he suggests doing at the end of your assessments is to take your top 3, and those become your 3 keyword references that you will then use to conduct your research. So again, as I said a moment ago, he goes over in the book some of the tools that you can use. Again, he does do an audiobook version of the book that's available in the book bonuses if you want to listen instead of read. And he also has a book supplement that goes with that audio iteration as well. He doesn't have any video training in as of now that I saw in the book bonus bundle that actually walks you through some of the exercises he recommends in regards to the research tools. So that's why I decided to create that supplementary video on my own that I put inside of that blog post episode that you can take a look at and watch. So what I would recommend you do is use the link inside of the show notes, get your hands on a copy of the book. Even if you decide to get the Kindle version of the book, which is available on Amazon, you'll get the link inside of that book to download the bonus supplements, and then you can listen to the book as well as have the Kindle book if you don't want to wait for the physical book to come, or you don't want the physical book. If you want the physical book, then you'll have to wait for it to arrive. And I believe he's still doing this. I'm not sure. Because again, I don't know when you're going to be listening to this episode, so it may not even be available if you listen to this, say, a year from now. But I believe he might have, if you send the receipt over from purchasing the book, he might send you out a link that you can get the bonuses before the book arrives if you decide to do the print version of the book, the physical version of the book. But if not, you want it right away, then I would say get the Kindle iteration of it. And because I'm impatient and I don't really, I like Kindles. Get the Kindle iteration of the book. You'll get the link inside the book to download the bonuses. And then you can go through some of those templates and worksheets he has in there, and then watch that video supplemental training on the research tools inside the blog post episode. And that way you can get a more well-rounded experience of what I'm talking about and what he's talking about in the book. So here are a few other areas of some bonuses I really loved about the book that he gives you. As I said, he gives you a market brainstorm worksheet. This is a great place to get you to begin thinking about markets you might want to focus on. He also gives you a list of 25 profitable niche ideas. These are ideas that he's researched, or subjects he's researched, and he feels like these are viable markets that you might want to pursue. So again, that list is available in there. You can take a look at that. The business model brainstorm worksheet, as I mentioned all the way through this episode, he has a high preference for educational information products. So again, you can use that worksheet to brainstorm how you can take maybe a physical product or a physical service and do an information or educational digital information-based product spin-off of that. He also has what he calls an infographic that shares, it's a one-page business plan, and he breaks it down into what he calls in, up, and max. So in is stands for entry-level product. It can be something I'd say under $500. It could be a mini course. It could be a full-on course. It could be even, a one-off service, maybe a one-off consultation or something like that. But I would say under $500, and he calls it his entry-level product. In my opinion, that can be free or paid. I think that it could be free if you're trying to use it to build your email list. And then I would have a product ready to go that you would offer them, which could go into what he calls the up, or the second tier level of service. That can be in the $1,000 range and up. Again, it depends upon what you're offering. And then the max is the highest touch point level of service. This can be in-person experiences like workshops, tours, retreats, and that kind of thing. So, and what I like about the fact that he takes you through this mindset, and I want to share a caveat with you on this. In the online educational digital marketing space, there's always been this sort of pyramid, if you will, that everyone has to go through what they call the funnel. I'm sure you've heard the word funnel before, especially if you know anything about internet marketing. So the idea is that the person comes in at the entry level, which is what Ryan talks about, and then they have to get the second tier level product before they can get the max product. This is the only particular offering he has in there that I take it with a grain of salt. And what I mean by that is this. I personally don't believe you have to position yourself and your offerings in a way that people have to go through steps and buy things from you at certain price points before they can get to the max or the highest price point. So in other words, let's say if you're a photographer and you do photography workshops and you do them abroad on location, and those are several $1,000s to get those workshops from you. I don't necessarily believe that you have to create a middle tier product or a lower tier product in order to get people to sign up for and buy those workshops. You don't have to. Now, it's nothing wrong with having a second tier and an entry-level tier. And the entry-level tier could be maybe some kind of an ebook that you either give away or sell that talks about some different techniques and different ways to photograph and edit and do things with their images. And then, of course, in that entry-level product, either free and or paid, you can then have, of course, plenty of places inside of that ebook where you can then send people to a sales page to talk about your workshops. So that would be an example of having an entry-level price point thing, again, free or low cost. If you have it more like a little course, then yeah, you could probably sell it and it shouldn't be a problem. But what I'm saying is, and this is the main point I want to get across, is if you've been holding back on creating the maximum experience because you don't have an entry level or a mid-range price thing available, I say rethink whether or not all of that stuff is necessary. Personally, I think that if you are going to offer a high touch point level of service that could command up to several thousands of dollars, create and sell that first, and then reverse engineer and make those lower tier product things afterward. Because sometimes people really want to just do the higher tier levels of service with you, and they don't really want your entry level ebook and your mid level email course or online course. They really just want to pack up the gear in this context and get on a plane and go somewhere with you and hang out with the camera and take beautiful pictures. So again, if you're designing a higher price ticket item, design the higher price ticket item and introduce that and work on selling that and actually get some sales with that, and then reverse engineer back to the lower tier things. You don't have to start out with free to low to mid to high. So that's my only personal caveat to what he recommends in the book. Otherwise, I think everything in there is great. But this three price point thing, and everyone has to come in at the same place and then go to the next place and then go to the next place, to me, I think it's just kind of been done to death. And I think that people are kind of gotten bored and tired of it. And if I'm really wanting the ultimate experience with you, I don't want to feel like the only way I can get it is I have to go through this other stuff. I'm not putting it down. I just think that it's become like this thing within the internet marketing world that we have to do that in order to be able to sell the higher ticket thing, which is what we want to sell most of the time anyway. So again, don't assume that you've got to go entry level, free, low price, mid price, and then go up. Start with the high and then work backward in reverse. That's just my personal recommendation. You do as you wish. So again, that's an infographic that he has called the one-page business model, and he breaks down the tiers and all that stuff. Now, another brilliant feature of Ryan's work, as I mentioned a moment ago, is the red light, yellow light, green light process for determining if a potential market is viable and worth pursuing. So in his recommendation, he says, as you're doing your research, more specifically with Google Trends to start with, and then you move over to Amazon, and then you move over to, I think it's Amazon and Google Trends. You want to determine if there is what he calls a green light or a yellow light or red light. So red light would mean that in terms of Google Trends, there's either too much competition or there's not enough interest in the product to justify pursuing, or in the topic, I should say, to justify pursuing it any further. And there's a sweet spot he talks about that you want to have in Google Trends. And again, the video supplement that I created that goes with this, which you'll see in the show notes page, shows you an illustration of that sweet spot that you're looking for. He goes into it much more in depth in the book. And I'm going to be really honest with you, that part kind of confused me just a little bit, because the areas that he was testing were kind of all over the map. They weren't all under one particular subject. So for me personally, I think the Google Trends thing is very good, but I kind of took it with a little bit of a grain of salt because, again, you just kind of have to run through the process, and you'll see when you watch the video that goes with this, you'll see more what I'm talking about. There was some features that Google Trends offers that he didn't talk about in the book, at least not that I noticed. And I felt that it was a really important and really viable. So again, that's what inspired me to make the video supplement that is available to you to get on the show notes page about Google Trends. So again, depending upon what your research is that you find, it's either a red light, meaning it's either not worth pursuing because it's not enough of an interest or too much, or it's in a sweet spot, or it's too low, or it's in a sweet spot area, meaning it's kind of right in the middle, and it seems to be trending. The trending seems to be even. It kind of has its ups and downs, but it kind of stays pretty even keel throughout, anywhere from 4 days to a year to 5 years. And you can also search that keyword for worldwide or just by country. So again, when you watch the video that goes with that I've created for you, you'll see what I'm talking about. So according to his process, depending upon how that result comes out, you will then say, okay, this is a red light, I'm not pursuing this any further, or this is a green light, it's good to go, or it's a yellow light, I might have to drill down deeper, but I can still keep going with my research. The second level of research, again, he recommends is Amazon. So you go to Amazon, you type in that same keyword phrase, and you're looking for books, I would say, because again, he's leaning this towards educational, informational based products. So what you're looking for, which is something that I did not know and I just recently learned, is that I guess Amazon now is accepting advertising. So if someone's written a book, they can pay Amazon to showcase their book when you do a search. And in the video that I have with this, you'll see I used learn watercolor painting, I believe, in the keyword search inside of Amazon. And what Ryan suggests is you want to find what he calls the sweet spot is 3 to 7 listings that are marked as sponsored. So if you know anything about Facebook, Facebook has sponsored posts, which means that if you're scrolling through the news feed, you'll see the word kind of gray. It's kind of gray and really small, but you can see it where it says sponsored. That means the person that is behind this post paid Facebook to show you this post. Well, now Amazon, I guess, now has joined the club and they're doing the same thing. So what he recommends in the book, Choose, is that the sweet spot is 3 to 7 sponsored listings. I don't want to call them posts because it's not Facebook. So in the context of learning watercolor painting, I was looking for 3 to 7 books that were sponsored listings on the first page of the search. And I didn't go past the first page of the search. If it's any more than 7, he said, I think if it's 8 to 9 or 8 to 10, he said that could be a potential yellow, or like proceed with caution on that. If it's 1 to 2 or 0 to 1 to 2, it's not enough to even bother with. So again, you can't find any sponsored listings, or it's 1 to 2, don't even bother with it. I believe if it's 8 to 9 or more, it's too much competition. It'll be too hard for you to break through. If it's 3 to 7, that's considered a sweet spot. So in the context of what I'm talking about here with this, in the video, which you'll see on the show notes page, I found 6 sponsored listings for different books on watercolor painting. Actually, one was questionable. I don't even think it was about painting, but for somehow or another, it came up in the search. So I think realistically, there was only 5. But again, that's considered a sweet spot. So that means that 5 people paid Amazon to show you that book. So, or those books on that subject. Again, you apply that to your particular subject or whatever it is that you're looking at. So that's considered a green light. Now, I extended it, as I said before, and I went to Udemy, but I didn't go to Udemy so much to see if there were any courses on the subject. I knew there would be courses on the subject, the same with Skillshare. But what I went to Udemy for, and Skillshare for, more specifically Udemy, is because I wanted to read the reviews. And so this switches hats a little bit. This is not what Ryan talks about in the book at all, so I want to make that caveat really clear. So my purpose for going to Udemy is that I wanted to see, first of all, people who have taken any course around the subject of watercolor painting for this particular example. And I wanted to sort out the results based on a particular course based on the most reviews. So I wanted to see what people were writing. And what I did was I created a spreadsheet which you can do easily in Google Docs. And I have an example of it inside the video, which you can see. And what I did was I began to highlight and copy literally phrases and terms and things that people were saying in their reviews that related to results or issues slash maybe complaints about a particular program I was looking at. So I wanted to see what was the common things that people were saying about a particular subject, and in this context around this course. For this example, as you'll see in the video, I talked about watercolor painting course. And the one thing I kept seeing over and over and over again was that people wanted to gain confidence to be able to paint watercolor. And I saw that over and over and over and over again in all the reviews I read. So I copied that and I put that in my spreadsheet, and you'll see the example of it again in the video. This was really key. This to me is really key because this is a term called copy stalking. And what it is you're reading reviews to take the temperature of what people are actually responding to as it relates to a product and or a service, or in this case, a course. You also can do this with Amazon with book reviews as well. The key to make this really work for you is you want to actually copy things like memorable phrases that people say, things that really spoke to them, things that problems that they particularly had or desires that they had that they wanted and that this course fulfilled or didn't fulfill. And I added on a fourth one where I wanted to list things that people literally had an issue with. And I think that fourth one, the one where people list out the issues they have, was really, really important because while you would not use that verbiage in your copy per se, you might, but you do want to know what people had a problem with that particular ebook or e-course. I share an example in the video of one of the ebooks. I think it was a Kindle book on watercolor painting on Amazon. And there were only 4 reviews. One was really good. The other 3, one didn't make sense. The other 2 specifically stated that they thought the book was poorly constructed in a sense. They thought that the pictures were poor quality and they were black and white images, which they didn't like. And I personally completely understand that because if it's a digital book, why would you not use color images? You're not paying for printing, so why would you not use color pictures? But anyway, that was enough for them to say that they didn't like that. And I think there was one other complaint, I couldn't remember exactly what it was, or observation I could say, that they just didn't like about the book. So those things, that's the kind of stuff you want to copy and put inside your spreadsheet, because when you're constructing your own product or course or whatever the case may be, you want to address those things in your copy, on your sales page, on your opt-in pages, and with the product itself. As I mentioned earlier in the episode about Ryan's decision to upgrade the book, that the one he purchased from someone else, that he thought, why wouldn't she just do this? But she didn't do it, or he didn't do it, whatever the case may be. So Ryan decided to take the bull by the horns and do it himself and make a better product, and it sold better. So this is where you are literally getting intel as to how a product is selling and how it's being perceived by the market. And so then you can pivot and make those adjustments and make yours even better. So again, it's not about not doing a book on watercolor. For this example, you can do one, but see where the other ones kind of missed the boat or dropped the ball and make yours better. So again, you want to look for keywords or phrases or verbiage that people say that relates to a result they personally got, or a desire or aspiration that they looked for or wanted that the product fulfilled or didn't fulfill, as it were. It depends on the service of the product. And again, that verbiage is very powerful to use. And by having it copied and put in a spreadsheet when you're ready to move forward and write your own sales materials out, you'll actually have verbiage you can use and address pain points or interests or desires using actual verbiage that that person said in that review. So what the one thing you don't want to copy is people saying, oh, it was a nice course. Well, that really says nothing. Or the instructor was really great. That says nothing. Or it was awesome. Again, that says nothing. You want very tactile, very firm and clear results or issues or complaints that a person had. Like the book didn't have color pictures and it should have. Or I really thought I wanted to learn watercolor painting, but what I really wanted was to gain confidence. I wanted to get confident about it. And like again, and look for trends. If you see the same thing written over and over and over again, you want to copy that verbatim, and that goes into your sales copy. So this kind of segues off of what Ryan talked about. He did not get into this. This is my own thing. I added onto it. Why I think the video is so a perfect supplement to this, because as you're doing your research, you're now seeing what people are reacting to existing products, and you're beginning to bank your own library of copy that you can then use in your own materials, emails, podcasts, blog posts, your own course itself, sales pages, opt-in pages, social media posts, whatever it is that you're going to create. You can use that intel that you've gotten to be able to speak to the audience that you want to attract to purchase your iteration of the product or the service. So I thought this was something that would be of high value to you. So again, I believe that I've covered everything that I want to. I'll just really briefly, to wrap this up, I just want to basically say that inside of Ryan's bundle, he does give you a worksheet that allows you to tick off the areas where you've maybe hit a red light, where it's maybe a questionable or a non-viable market, a yellow light, meaning you need to do a little bit more research or maybe drill down and niche down the subject area or the audience a little better, and a green light, meaning that you've gotten viability with the audience. And so that worksheet's also available in Ryan's bundle that goes with the book, so you can get that as well. So again, I recommend get his book, go through it, read it once. Read it first before you really watch the video on the show notes page, because then it'll make it all make sense. So read the book all the way through. You can do it, like I said, in 1 or 2 settings. Download his book bundle, kind of get familiar with all of that. Play with the worksheets a little bit. Watch the video that I've made for you on the show notes page for this episode, and that'll tie it all together. And then what I want to do, again, to kind of wrap this whole thing up, because I can, talk about a whole lot more, but I'm going to wrap it up at this point. I would love it if you would share your observations and the things that you got from all of this. Share them with me on Instagram. Like I said, I'm trying to really spend more time there and engage and connect more. So I have a link in my show notes here to my Instagram page. Go over there and send me a direct message and let me know, hey, you got the book. Let me know what you came up with. Let me know if the video I made for you helped at all, helped to kind of wrap it, pull it all together, and maybe tie a bow on it a little bit. If you have any areas where you're feeling stuck, and feel free to message me on there. I really, really, really want to know that, what you got from it all, because like I said, there's a lot to unpack. And, but I personally feel this, and this is why I wanted to do this for the book, because I would like to have interviewed Ryan, and that still might happen. But I didn't want to wait on that. I felt like this was too important to not address early on. So this is why I really love this book, and why I want to make this a more meatier episode, as opposed to just, kind of giving you some notes or whatever and stuff and sending you on your way. Again, we invest a lot of time and energy and passion and sweat and tears and money and everything else to get our ideas out into the world. And I just feel like it's so important to really, truly get clear on making that connection between what really sings to you, feels a deep feeling for you, and what the market is willing to support and is willing to pay you for it, hire you for it, and work with you. And it's just nothing more frustrating to me than to see someone spend so much energy and so much time and so much effort and sweat and tears and money and everything to get something off the ground, and they're close but they're not quite crossing over, and they're working their butt off and nothing is happening. That's just so frustrating. And like I said, it's emotionally and mentally debilitating. And I just don't want that for you. I want you to get that level of clarity early on in your process and your journey so that you up your chances of success. I'm not saying that this book and everything is going to be the guaranteed roadmap to your success, but you at least want to stack the odds in your favor. And that's why I feel that this was so important. And I think something that every entrepreneur, especially creative entrepreneurs, should have in their toolkit. Research can seem boring, but I promise you it can be one of the most eye-opening things that you will ever do. And I think there's nothing wrong with investing some time. It may take you a few hours once you do all of it, but you can really get a sense about what your market is struggling with or what their desires are. And in particular, that's why I like the Udemy research I did, and I'm sure Skillshare has the same thing, because by reading what people are saying about experiences they already are having, helps to connect you to how you can then continue that on for them or even make the experience better for them. So again, I would love for you to embrace the idea of doing some research and not feeling like it's actually going to take away from your creative process, because I think it's a key to your creative process. And I think having that under your tool belt, knowing how to do that kind of research and get the data that you need to make the best choices for you is just vile. I want to say another word. It's not coming to me right now to say. It's the best thing that you can do for yourself. So again, I'm going to have the links to everything in the show notes, including how to access Google Trends, Keywords Everywhere, which is a Google Chrome extension that you can add on to your Google Chrome browser. And what you do with that one, whenever you type in a keyword, it automatically will pull up on the right sidebar of your web browser alternate keyword terms and even what prices that people are paying to buy those keywords. So again, sometimes you can get other iterations of keyword terms based on the one that you first enter in. So I didn't talk about that much in the episode. I do talk about it in the video, which again, you can go see at Get Paid for Your Creativity /013 for episode 13. You can see me talk about that there. It's a free extension. You can add that onto your browser. I talk about Udemy and Skillshare, and I have links there. So everything is available on that show notes page. And again, I would love if you would connect with me over on Instagram. Again, you can direct message me, share any insights, highlights, anything that really stuck out for you. Share that with me. I will, as soon as I see it come through, I'll respond as soon as I can. And perhaps we can even have a conversation and dive into it even deeper. So again, this is when I think it's one of the best decisions. I believe what he says, the title I think says it all. Choose the single most important decision that you will ever make before or while running your business. Is choosing the right product, the right service, the right idea, the right thing for you. And I wanted to share this book and share my personal take on the book and how I feel creatives can use it to choose the best idea for them. So with that said, this is Rodney Washington, your host, signing off, and I hope you have a great, blessed day, and I hope to connect with you on Instagram, and I'll see you on the next episode of the podcast. Take care. Bye-bye. We have entered the age of creative self-employment. In the new economy, people are creating true security for themselves. That's why I believe there's never been a better time in history to monetize your gifts. So if you're ready to take control of your financial and creative future, I have something for you. It's my free audio and PDF program, 57 Ways to Monetize Your Gifts and Create True Security for Yourself. And you can get that at my website, getpaidforyourcreativity.com /57 Ways Gift.